Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Oh my goodness. Good morning, everybody. Boy, we did not get enough coffee this morning? Oh my God, I'm excited to be here and really excited to talk to you about your leadership. So just a few housekeeping items before we begin. I have a digital handout. I have way too many slides, which is a problem, but at the end, I got a Google Doc. You can scan the code, write down the link. It's got everything and more right there. Other thing for housekeeping items is I love social media. Some of you might have seen me tweeting. I tweet just a little bit. That's me on Twitter. By all means, you do not need to follow me. I tweet a lot. And if I tweet too much for you, unfollow me. It's professional, not personal. But I want to tell you how I got here. I'm from the northeastern part of the United States, grew up right outside New York City. Now I live in Houston, Texas. Quick story. Don't take a picture when you're working in Hawaii. Send it to your wife who's digging out of a foot of snow in Staten Island, New York. So now we're in Texas where it doesn't snow, but now we have huge rainstorms, whole different issue. But I was the teacher and the principal that did not believe in anything that I talk about. I was so bad, I was a reality TV star in the United States. If you Google me, I'm honest, I was a reality TV star. I used to run around my building taking devices from kids. I was pathetic. I chased them through the hallways. Two things happened that changed my trajectory. Number one, as I was chasing a student through my school in New Jersey, got him, and he thanked me for creating a jail out of what should be a school. Change number two, a few weeks later, I was reading a newspaper article in New York City about Twitter. I thought social media was the dumbest thing on the planet. I didn't have time, but as I read the article, the light bulb went on. And I finally saw a connection to my professional practice. You will not find an effective teacher leader, building leader, organizational leader who is not an effective communicator. That is the only reason I got on social media, to be a better communicator. And then I got creepy. And no offense, I'm looking at some creepy people out here too, because you're like me. You have social media accounts, but you lurk. You don't engage. I want you not to lurk. I want you to be an active participant. Here's what happened. I lurked and learned how far behind my school was. I learned that we were not good as we thought we were. I learned that we had a long way to go. That is when we began to learn how to unlearn and relearn, to transform teaching, learning, and leadership. You want to know why I'm here? Not because my school is the first school in New Jersey to go bring your own device 9 years ago. I'm not here because we were doing blended learning, personalized learning 8 years ago. I am here because everything that we did with technology had a purpose, and we improved achievement and became one of the highest achieving public schools, not just in our state, but in the entire country. I am here because the entire system embraced different and better. Why did we have to look at things differently? Because the world is changing. And here's what I want to ask you. Technology changes. Is teaching, learning, and leadership changing? Because it has to if we want to get results. So this is just what happens in 60 seconds on the World Wide Web. And as we think about all this change, you need to take a critical lens to your work. If we want to prepare kids for their future, and kids, no matter how old, students, no matter how old they are, if we want to prepare them for the future, we cannot be stuck in the past. Challenge number one, tackling your own mindset. Challenge number two, taking on the mindset of others. We must look through a different lens. We must look at things differently.
I used to be a cat. Every day the same. I'd be aloof till lunch, then coldly indifferent after. To me, everything was just, meh. Then it hit me. Why be so cat? Why not be a bit more dog? I mean, look at the world today. It's amazing. Running, amazing. Chasing cars, amazing. Sticks, amazing. Carpe diem. It means grab the frisbee. Maybe we should all be a bit more dog.
Be more dog.
We live in amazing times, but we can't be stuck in the past. The most dangerous phrase in education. That's the way we've always done it. So let's talk about leadership. 3 points. We talk about shifting mindsets. If it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll make an excuse. We need to focus on the what ifs instead of the yeah buts. Point number 2, when we think about leadership, don't ask others to do what you're not willing to do or have not done yourself. Will you model the way? Hey, change is not easy. The only group that likes change at scale are wet babies. That's about it. But as we think about change, it's the example that you set. And when we think about leadership, leadership is about action. It's not about position, title, or power. I am here not because I was the leader of my school. I'm here because of what my teachers did, what my students did. Don't think that if you don't have a title that you're not a leader. Leadership is about action, ladies and gentlemen. But I will tell you where leadership can kind of get a little funky. It's with those people that have the power, the position and title. If they don't get it, change is not going to happen. This was me for the longest point in time. Shifted my mindset, helped my school shift their mindset, and that's when we really were able to take advantage of all the technology that we had in our school. So now I want to move into the how. I want to talk to you about elements of your practice that you do every single day. And I want you to take that critical lens of your practice and think about what you do. We're going to talk about student learning, learning spaces and environments, your own professional learning. We're going to talk about how do we improve the work. And then, how do we celebrate success? We want to scale change. We need to celebrate practical examples of success. Then we'll talk about communication, public relations, branding, and then finally, opportunity. So let's start diving in. Let's talk about not just student engagement, but student learning. As we think about engagement, we think about learning. Why? What is your purpose? Why do you do what you do? Because the challenge today in 2019 and going forward is how do we instill that sense of purpose in our learners, regardless of how old they are? Here's my why. Every single learner has greatness hidden inside of them. It's the job of an educator to help them find and unleash that greatness. And as we think about purpose, we think about our purpose, we might know that, but how do we create that purpose for our kids? It's not just about having them use technology. How do we empower our learners, our kids, to use technology to learn in ways that they couldn't without it? It's not about how many tools we can use. It's what are our kids, not the adults, our students, doing with those tools that ultimately matters. How do we prepare them for a world that we cannot predict? You know, I look at the world now, this is my day job. My secondary job, because of technology, starts when I get home to the United States. I walk into my garage and I have to be the break the box down guy because my wife loves Amazon so much. Technology has changed the world. But I'll tell you this, if we want technology to improve learning for our kids, it's not this. It's not just about putting a device in the hands of kids and expecting learning miracles to happen. So as we think about change, it's not just buying this stuff. It's how do we really look at pedagogy? And if we don't get instructional design right first, all technology will do is speed up the rate of failure. We learn the hard way. When we went bring your own device back in 2010, nothing changed. Kids brought devices in, so what? We didn't ensure that those changes that pedagogy were having so that technology would live up to the lofty expectations that we set for it. That's when we hit the pause button and we focused on learning. I know it's such a cliche, learning first, but here was the secret to our success. We looked at what we had, we looked at our problems. We had no continuity across our classrooms. We were all over the place. And when it came to tech, our kids weren't thinking. As you look at the vertical axis, when kids are using tech, are they thinking? Horizontal axis, how are they applying their thinking in relevant, meaningful ways? Kids want to know whether they're elementary, secondary, university, they want to know, why am I learning this? How will I use it outside of school? Not just what did I learn. This gave us a common language, common vision, common expectations to take that critical lens to our work. And what we learned was, it's not technology here, curriculum instruction and assessment here. How do we improve learning? So as we think about where we are your kids using technology to explain ideas and concepts? Are they using information in a new way? Are they distinguishing different parts? Are they justifying a standard decision and creating new products or points of view? And how are they aligning that, applying it in ways that actually matter? So as we think about where we are, take that critical lens to your work. Are kids thinking? How are they applying their thinking when it comes to technology? The idea here now, in this dynamic, disruptive age, it's not about preparing kids for something. The majority of kids do not care about the test. Kids are not all excited. Has your kids ever come home and said, hey, mom and dad, I had an amazing day exploring the curriculum? No? Well, neither of mine. Or, hey, that test I took, that standardized test, it was awesome. Kids want to know why. And we have to rethink our work regardless of where we work. Are we preparing our kids for anything? You want to know how you future-proof education? We get our kids to think. That is the key in the face of automation, artificial intelligence, and advanced robotics. Get our learners to do things that technology can't yet. And I say that because we have no idea what the future holds. But what it all comes down to is Michael Fullen, one of my favorite researchers. Pedagogy is the driver, technology is the accelerator. Don't focus on the what, which is the technology. Focus on the middle, the learning, the why, the how, all the verbs, the products. And when we get that pedagogical foundation down, that is when we have all these tools to unleash the potential of our learners, but also to unleash our own potential. So as we think about, I want you to think about where you are, think about where you can grow and get better. As we move on and look at pillar number 2, which is learning spaces, I have 2 questions for you. Would you want to learn in the same spaces as your own kids, as the kids you teach, as the kids you work with? Would you want to learn under the same conditions? Here's what happened for me when I got in classrooms more. I'm like, heck no. I'm like, why are we doing this to kids? My school, desks in rows, bells, all that. We had to look at how we could change that. You could have the best pedagogy, the best technology. But if our learners don't want to learn in the schools and under those conditions, it makes all of our work that much harder. So we need to think about pedagogical change, technological change, but also the changing to our spaces. Numerous studies have supported why we need to rethink the conditions under which our kids learn. Classroom design can impact learning by as much as 25%, positive or negative. In my last book, we looked at 10 different studies of how classroom design impacts learning. Here's a summary of one of them, looking at everything from furniture, layout, color, temperature, acoustics, lighting. All those factors impact learning. Same thing with all of us. So as we think about our spaces, whether it's our classroom spaces, building spaces, even outdoor spaces, I love this image from Steelcase. We want to innovate. We want to innovate the way we teach, the way we learn, the way we lead. Spaces influence the culture of learning in our buildings, in our organizations. It influences the process of learning. Spaces also influence the technology and tools that we have in place, and also how we effectively utilize those tools to unleash the potential of our kids. We have to work to create the conditions where we would want to learn. Not just in one classroom, we have a lot of isolated pockets of excellence in schools and systems across the world. Well, guess what? We need to scale that. Let's think about pillar number 3. Think about your own professional learning and growth. And as we think about professional learning, we think about growth, where do you fall on this image? Are you orange, meaning I don't do that social media thing? Maybe you're a connected lurker, like I used to be, the creepy people that I talked about before. Not creepy, but think about, are you a connected lurker, collaborative learner, willing participant? The magic happened when we took ownership over our learning in my former school, and even now. But if you're orange, many of us remember the days when there was no internet. I know, very dark times. We remember what it was like. Well, here's what your learning looks like if you're not a connected learner. If you don't have your own personal learning network. That's a choice. Hey, you can be there. That's your decision. But look at the two-way arrows. The only two-way arrows were because of people. But if you're not orange and you're a connected learner, look at how your pathways change. Look at how all those two-way, look at how you move to the center of learning. The secret to our success, anytime, anywhere, with anyone we want. Resources, ideas, strategies, ask questions, answer questions, get feedback. The best part about technology, we're here in beautiful Valencia right now from all over the world. But when we get back to our home countries, we can still connect with the best and brightest. The best and brightest are those that are doing the work. I can't tell you, ladies and gentlemen, how this changed my professional life, because every connection helps you connect to more people. Some of my closest friends now are in Australia. And when I go to countries like Australia, I know people there because of my personal learning network. Why wouldn't you want to have the whole world in the palm of your hands? Work smarter, not harder. That's what this is all about. So if you need some motivation, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you, I'm giving away books later. I got to figure out how I'm going to do it for whoever tweets the most. Should have told you that in the beginning, but I will be giving some books away later because the whole personal network thing, I want to see who's tweeting in this event. But here's 10 reasons. 10 reasons for you to consider spending 15 minutes a day to learn and get better. 15 minutes a day. Why? Because if you're the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. Social media opens you up to possibilities, to ideas that have been implemented successfully. When we went Bring Your Own Device in 2010, we consulted with a district with 40,000 kids that did it from kindergarten to grade 12 2 years before us. We did not reinvent the wheel. What we would do is find ideas in the digital space, and we'd make those ideas work for our specific culture. But hopefully one of these ideas up here will resonate with you. But remember, if you don't value it when it comes to change, whatever, if you don't value it, don't expect others to. So as we think about learning, let's now think about, well, how do we share the learning? How do we showcase what we're doing? So as we think about this fourth pillar, communications, times have changed. The days of paper and snail mail, it still works. But if you want to be successful in your role, no matter who you work with, You have to be consistent in these spaces. So as we think about communications, you need to think about how you meet your stakeholders where they're at. Communications opened the gateway for me as a school leader. But then it was trying to find the right tools. You don't know which of your stakeholders, what tools they're actually using. If we're talking about kids today, Snapchat, Instagram. I know it scares a lot of us, but that's the spaces they're in. Two-way, multifaceted approach. As we focus on improving communications, how do you celebrate all the great stuff you're doing? How do you take control of your public relations? You know, if you don't tell your story, someone else will. You know the power of social media? Every single one of you is doing something amazing. Or you work with someone that's doing something amazing. Every single one of you have a powerful story to tell. In my building, the best storytellers were my students. Second best, my teachers. As a school leader, I just took advantage of telling all their stories. As we think about the power of storytelling, and we think about why stories are distinctively human. We've seen cave paintings. We've seen storytelling in books. Storytelling is a part of what makes us human. It activates the emotional part of the brain, aids in memory. So as we think about why we tell a story, will you become the storyteller in chief? Let me tell you a little bit about my school. My school is in New Jersey, about 10 minutes from New York City, the #1 media market in the country, in the United States, in the world. And as we think about what we did to tell our story, I'm going to come back to New York City news in a minute. But think about the images that you have. Think about the images. My #1 tool wasn't Twitter, it was Instagram. I loved getting in classrooms, taking pictures of kids. But you know what I loved more? I loved taking pictures and bragging about the success of my teachers and my kids. In my school, parents spoke 40 different languages. My building was built in 1928. We had no money, but we were able to improve and succeed in spite of every challenge we had. And you want to know something? We bragged about it. In education, we don't brag enough and we pay the price. We bragged and bragged and bragged. We didn't just use images. We also used video. A 1-minute video equates to about 1.8 million written words. You all are doing amazing work. You have the same tools and more. You have the picture tools. You have the video tools. Coming back to New York City, New York City media came to my school 14 times in 5 years to cover positive stories. Whether it was our maker spaces, flipped classroom. We were not the highest achieving school. We were not the most innovative. We were the best in the United States at telling our story. How many of you have a blog? Let me model. How many of you have a blog? Raise your hands high. Look around the room, okay? I know why the rest of you do not have a blog. Stay with me. You don't have time. You don't know what to write about. No one's gonna read what you write about. You can't write, or you just don't know how to start a blog. 5 excuses. Remember one of my earlier slides? If it's important to you, you'll find a way. If not, you'll make an excuse. Don't tell me that you don't have a story. Don't tell me that your work is not having an impact. And don't tell me you don't have the time. Because if you go down the time excuse, that's when I get really, let me tell you about time. I spend 70% of my day in classrooms. I evaluated, observed my teachers 3 times a year minimum. We did 5 non-evaluative walks a day. Budget, all the stuff, that was me. If you value it, you'll make the time. This is back from 2010. And you know what this image tells you? Good ideas travel fast. All I did was blog about my teachers, and I blogged about my kids. I blogged about what worked. We showcased how we used research as a foundation for everything that we did, and then the evidence to show how it was improving outcomes for our kids. I hope some of you at the end of this conference will jump into this space, because the more we share, we increase the possibility, potential of transforming education at scale across the world. As I begin to wrap this up, I told you about improving the work, sharing the work. You think about things like Adidas, Nike, Calvin Klein. Think about the brands, Apple. Think about the brands you invest in. Why do you spend money on those brands? Think about your clothing. Think about your apparel. Think about cars. Why do you invest? I'll tell you why. Value, loyalty. The brands have great messaging. In the digital world, you are a brand. But if you let other people control the message and share, they'll determine the brand for you. Your goals, results, vision, mission, what is that? Think about how you will make a concerted effort to share. Because when we think about what should a brand convey, the brand is your work, ladies and gentlemen. You're not selling, you're telling, in order to build better relationships with those who you serve. In education, we are in a service business. So as we think about what should brands convey, yes, achievement matters. Teacher, administrator quality, extracurricular activities, interesting instructional practices, innovation, college career readiness as we define it, partnerships. We didn't go into this wanting to build a brand. We went into this being proud of our work and sharing consistently. And as I begin to wrap this up, oh, by the way, hype your brand. Forgot I wrote a book on that. All right, so as we think about how we really bring this full circle, the last pillar is opportunity. And I love this quote from Milton Berle. If opportunity doesn't knock, then build a door. My school was given hundreds of thousands of dollars of technology for free. My kids got to try out the Chromebook at Google's offices in New York City before any other group of kids and gave feedback to the developers of the Chromebook. I had teachers flown halfway across the world because of our blog posts. We had people visit our school in New Jersey from all over the world to learn about what we were doing. And you want to know why? Because we improved the work, we shared the work. And by improving and sharing the work and putting it out there, opportunity followed. I can't tell you what you'll get. I will tell you this, you got to work for it. And you have to be transparent, you have to share, and opportunity will follow. All I've done, hopefully you see the connections, is talk to you about good leadership. In the words of Jim Collins, how do we move from good to great? If you look at the periphery of this image, this is what you do from your lens. I want you to think about how can you do it better? How can you be more effective? But how can you get a better result? And how does digital complement and enhance the work that you do every single day in your respective position? And so as we think about good leadership and we think about where we are, I got a few parting thoughts before we move and I end. Everything the work that we do across the globe in education is about relationships. If there is no trust, there's no relationship. If there's no relationship, no real learning occurs. And real learning isn't what we think it is. Real learning is those who we serve, our students. Do they see the purpose, the value in their learning experiences? That is our task, ladies and gentlemen. And when we talk about change, it's scary. But the one thing that we learned, the person who says it cannot be done should not interrupt the person who is doing it. You all have the capacity to lead, ladies and gentlemen. Will you embrace it? Will you take action? Will you model? Will you set that example? Will you tackle the resistance? And will you share and make it transparent? When leading change, you must be patient, because change is a process. It's not an event. Not only do you have to be patient, you have to expect the unexpected. I love that video. And what's the point? Hey, things might not always work out the way you want it. But you want change, you all are the solution. You are the solution, but more so is how do you empower those around you? Hopefully you'll share something. Hopefully you'll share something that you will do differently or that you learned. I'm not going to say that you learned anything, but hey, hopefully you see something to your practice. What will you do differently? Maybe it's taking that critical lens to pedagogy. Maybe it's improving accountability protocols. Maybe it's telling your story. Maybe it's communicating. You need to find, hey, not just during my keynote, Sharon's keynote, your experiences here, the challenge of change is what will you do differently when you leave here? You will get so excited, you get so pumped up, but you gotta change your practice and that of others. So hopefully you'll take that opportunity to share on your hashtag. Yeah, I got lots of books, they're all on Amazon, but hey, you can read about that in a handout. I was never a writer. I was never a public speaker. What you see now, I used to be terrified to speak in public. Terrified. And I could not write. My mom still has to proof every single one of my blog posts. But you know something? When you're passionate, you can do anything. As I mentioned, here's the handout. And I'm glad I got like 48 seconds left because I'll leave it there. You might want to take a picture because they're probably going to take it down as soon as I'm done. But you can either scan the code or write down the case-sensitive link. When you get there, it'll do a brief survey where you don't even have to think. It's great. And it's a Google Doc. Save it. Because as I update it, you will always have the updated version. Notes are in there, links to other examples, but that's there. And I got 20 seconds. I have 20 seconds to thank you. I can't thank you enough for what you do in education. I can't thank you enough for being here away from your families, away from those you work with, away from your students. I can't thank you enough for being part of the noblest profession. Thank you, everybody.